Well, Shabbat HaGadol is meant to be the biggest sermon of the year, so buckle your seatbelts. Just kidding. So, knowing that I'm sending you all into Seder night does feel like a great responsibility. And I was thinking about a piece of Torah that I've heard quoted, and I have not found the source text. I've been looking for it for a long time. I'll tell you, the first time I heard it was on a Rabbi Sachs podcast that someone texted me that I listened to and loved and then promptly forgot. It's like lost in my phone. I'll never be able to track down exactly which one it was. And then I was listening to one of my favorite Torah teachers this week, Dr. Yosefa Fogel-Rubel. She teaches on a podcast called the Matan Torah Institute. And she also quoted this Rabbi Sachs Torah, but lo and behold, I can't find it anywhere. So if you hear nothing else, it's if you find this piece of Torah, let me know where it exists. What is the teaching that I loved so much and appreciated from Rabbi Sachs? It's that one of the major problems of Western modernity is that we really only have two units of focus. We focus on the individual, and we focus on the societal or the governmental. And that in between those two spaces is actually a vast realm of important and very influential space. Everywhere from the family unit to the community is a much smaller unit than the society. And yet we've really lost our way in that space of having more than the individual, but far less than the societal. And Rabbi Sachs's claim is that we really need to strengthen that middle layer of society. I heard this, as I said, years ago, and I've thought about it ever since. And it seemed appropriate to speak about this morning because the ritual of Pesach is so focused on that smaller unit, on the family, or on the home. In the verses that describe our first Pesach, in chapter 12 of the book of Exodus, it says the word Bayit no less than 7 times. So the message here is clear. This ritual, this transformative thing that is meant to take place for us is supposed to happen on the level of the home. And in that way, I really want to open for us what is supposed to be happening in our homes. First, I want to look at a teaching from Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, who's a German rabbi in the 20th century. And he talks about the idea that we're supposed to take the blood and put it both on the lintels and on our doorposts, the mezuzot and the mishkaf. And what he says, mashkof, not mishkaf, mashkof. And I'm saying that because I know Marty Liebman is here and he'll correct me after if I get it wrong. So, the mashkof, which is the lintel, and the mezuzot. You all know what a mezuzah is. It goes on the mezuzot, the posts of your door. And Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch makes a really interesting observation. He says that our homes protect us in 2 ways. The roofs protect us from the elements, from the weather. But the sides, the walls, actually are a bulwark against society. What does this actually mean? That we have a whole social universe that we exist in, and that we sometimes need a break from it. We sometimes actually need a barrier or a boundary. This feels all the more relevant for us who have literal devices that transcend any social boundary that you might have had historically when you entered the kind of sanctity of your home. We've really lost the home as the sacred space because now we can have our phones connecting us to literally everyone and everything all the time. And yet, in Shimshon Raphael Hirsch's estimation, the home used to be a place where we retreated a little bit, where we were just a little bit more grounded, a little bit less swept up in everything else that was happening around us. He says something really interesting in his teaching. He says, all of our altars have fallen into decay, all of our sanctuaries have been lost to us. But the home, which Pesach brought back to us, and the angels which Pesach invited into the home, the mutual affection of children and parents and husband and wife or partners, the sense of freedom and justice, brotherhood, concord, cooperation, and nationhood, trust in God, and loving obedience, the home and these spirits of the Jewish home have remained our eternal possession. I want to start to break down what he says, first with this claim that our altars have fallen into decay and our sanctuaries have been lost to us. Don't hear just altars and sanctuaries. Hear that thing I opened with, that middle realm of public life. All the places where we used to interact across difference, all of the places where we used to come together to do something collective, those have been neglected. Those have, in a sense, fallen into decay. And what then does the home represent? What does it look like for the home to be a reclaimed sphere? I heard a teaching that the moral, the political, and the partisan are all these separate spheres that in our contemporary moment have been totally collapsed. Now, what do I mean by that? And I just want to say, I was taught in rabbinical school to never talk politics from the bima. If anyone's unclear about what they're teaching in the conservative movement nowadays, the political is the place you do not go. And I want to tell you why. So these three spheres, the moral realm is the realm of the spirit, of the expansive, of the transcendent, of aspirational values, and of core essential truths. The moral actually is the thing that connects all of us, where we don't have to disagree about essential truths about who we are and about humans' essential goodness. The political is the beginning of narrowing of those expressions. We start to say, well, if we believe this about people, then we should achieve this in this way about that core moral belief. The partisan is an even further narrowing of that vantage point. The partisan says, well, these are the two parties that are going to achieve those values in this way or that way. So when I say that all of this has been collapsed in our moment in society, what I mean is that we've actually come to see the partisan as an expression of the moral. That we've really come to see when someone disagrees with us about the partisan party, that is a moral disagreement on the most fundamental level. We say, and I hear it all the time from all sides, I simply can't relate to these people. They're bad. And that's a moral judgment. And so what I wanted to start to tease out is what it would look like to shift from truth claims in our disagreements to policy claims. When we're disagreeing about the way to get things done, we're not actually disagreeing about fundamental truths that we believe in. And when we feel our hackles go up because we think we have a fundamental disagreement, stop arguing about the policy and start trying to nail down your core beliefs. In our teachings about Pesach, there's something really powerful that takes place in the Bayit. The Bayit is really symbolic of the Mizbeach, the sanctuary, or the altar. And I want to make that argument by pointing out two parallelisms in the way that we talk about what is going to happen the night of the Pesach offering, and the way we talk about the Mizbeach, which was really the topic of today's Parsha, Tzav. So we have a commandment to apply blood on the lintels. We say that we should do it on the doorposts and on the roof of the house. And in the altar, in the context of this week's Parsha, and in many conversations in the book of Vayikra, we're told again and again to sprinkle blood on the altar. So in that same way that we're sprinkling blood on our doorposts, we also are told to sprinkle blood on the altar. Also, we're told that the Pesach, the actual lamb that we've slaughtered for this night, has to be totally eaten up. It has to be totally consumed. There can be no leftovers. And part of the beauty of that is that you have to actually invite enough people to consume a whole lamb. which is, I think, nothing small, no trifle amount of lamb. If it's too much for one household, you invite your neighbors, watching that circle of connection, that circle of family widen and widen and widen. And when we talk about the sacrifices, we're also told that certain sacrifices can have no leftovers, that they have to be completely consumed. The Thanksgiving offering, the shlamim, is meant to be completely consumed. And in that way, again, in the context of the temple, in the context of the mizbeach and the altar, we see that this is another way that we're weaving the fabric of community together in this ancient practice. With both of these, the Bayit, the home, really becomes this place where we encounter God. And I want us to remember that we actually can strip away all of the, for lack of a better word, gobbledygook that's clogging up the lenses of how we see one another. We can return the Bayit to a place where morality, where the things that we truly believe in are what most is centered at our Seder. And so when you hear the stream of disagreement, when you hear the moral judgments forced at one another based on not what we deeply believe, but on what we say should be done about it, I ask that we try to return to that moral center. And in that way, I want to leave us with the words of our prophet, who promises that when Elijah comes, that parents and their children shall reconcile, and that is actually the vision of a perfected world that Malachi gives. That's the vision of the prophets that we read today, is this family unit that is healthy because it sees one another and it shows each other mutual respect. So I hope each of you have a transcendent Seder night and that you can bring these teachings to life in your own homes. And I can't wait to hear about it. We'll continue on page 184 with Chatzi Kaddish.